Okay. And once again, welcome everybody to today's French department event. Expand your career options, just add French. Quite like the title of our event because it makes so much sense. Thank you for joining us. My name is Barb Coiter. I work within the business development department at Douglas College. So in my little piece of the college institution, I get to do wonderful outreach to our business community. And in addition, we're in our department, we have the Career Center, which is available to all you fine students to access at any time. Before we launch fully into our discussion, I would like to say that Douglas College respectfully acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Kwikwetlam, Musqueam, and Kikite First Nations. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So you may have seen it on your screens. And what I just mentioned, this session is being recorded, and we will, for you students, let you know where you can access it after today's session if you'd like to come back and listen to it again. We will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions that come up throughout the session, please feel free to put them in the chat. Madame Fanny will be monitoring the chat and posing those questions in our session. And momentarily, Madame Kimberly will be moderating the session with our guests here with us today. Keith Kwok works with me in business development. Keith, do you have any more technical bits to add in before we get started?
No, thank you so much, Barb. So I just want to let you know that if you do have a question, we do have our Q&A open. That way, we would be able to track your questions a bit easier. So we would much appreciate if you put in your Q&A. Fanny and Kimberly will both be monitoring those, so you can feel free to message them if so your questions can get answered promptly. And we do encourage you to use the Q&A whenever possible. You don't need to feel free to wait till the end. So if one of our guests are talking and you want to jump in right away, please do so as well. Thank you so much, Barb.
Thanks, Keith. Okay, and at this point, Kimberly, I turn it over to you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Barb. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So my name is Kimberly Sutherland, and I'm a French instructor here, but before we go any further, I would like to introduce my colleague, and I'll hand it over to Fanny.
Yes, hello, everyone. My name is Fanny Boulessé. I'm an instructor of Douglas College since, oh my gosh, a certain number of years, almost 14 years here. And before Douglas, I worked on 3 different continents. So I'm happy to be able to propose this event with all my wonderful colleagues to help you know a little more about the opportunity for students to learn French. It's very important for us.
Thank you, Fanny. Okay, so as I was saying, I'm also a French instructor here. I haven't been here quite as long as Fanny, though some days it feels like it's been that long. But it's a great pleasure to have this first event, and we're very grateful to the Career Center for helping us to set this up, and especially to our guests. So I'm just going to briefly name the guests that we have with us, and just ask perhaps our guests that if they could just, in addition to having their names, if we could hear what institution you're from, because it may not be obvious from what's written next to your name, what institution you work with. So if you could just say a word about that as well. So I'm just going to look down my list and no particular order. So I wonder if I could ask Barbara to kick things off for us.
Sure. So my name is Barbara. So you want me to introduce myself?
Yes. Yeah, that's all. Just something about your institution or where. I think it's pretty obvious for you, but not for everybody.
So my name is Barbara, and I work for the Public Service Commission. So it's one of the organizations in the government of Canada. And I work as an HR advisor. So I've been working for the Public Service Commission now for 3 years. I was hired as a human resource assistant, and now I am an HR advisor, and it's a bilingual position.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Perhaps I could ask Melissa also to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Melissa Breton. I've been working in Douglas for 6 months. I formerly worked for Le Conseil Scolaire Francophone, which is the Francophone School Board of British Columbia. Is the bigger employer in British Columbia that is fully French. So I worked there for 17 years, and everybody that worked there needed to speak fully French. And there was a lot of job opportunities in that sector.
Wonderful. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. I wonder if I could ask Monica now.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Monica Hosseini. I am a talent acquisition manager. I support the Prairie Region retail banking with TD Bank Group, and I'm very excited to be here and to speak with all of you.
Merci. Thank you very much. And Jacqueline?
Hello, bonjour. I'm Jacqueline Ellison. Nice to meet everybody. I'm with Hub International. So I have the pleasure of leading the national team for Hub. And so what we do is a full service global insurance broker. So that could be anything from personal, casualty, health, employee, investments, risk management. We are a global organization. So that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you. Merci. I wonder if I could ask Stuart next.
Hi there, Stuart Massey here. I'm a corporal with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Been a member for 17 plus years now. I'm currently in the proactive recruiting section with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So if anybody that is interested in becoming a police officer, I can certainly tell you how having French skills is an asset in this outfit. And I would say Barbara can probably help you out with our civilian side if that's easier for her. But I'm looking for people that want to be out on the road and doing the job as a cop. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Vincent?
Hello, everyone. So I'm Vincent Catherine, working for the SDECB, or called Société de Développement Économique, the Colombie-Britannique or Economic and Development Society of British Columbia, which is a French Francophone non-profit organization that provides support for Francophone entrepreneurs or immigrants. And so, yeah, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Let's continue.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Okay, so we're going to get straight into the questions now. And I was hoping that we could go around the panelists and if relevant, so I don't think it's going to be relevant for all of you, but if relevant, I wonder if you could say what your background, if any, is in French in terms of what studies did you do?
Yes, I can start actually. So Monica here again. So I am actually based out of Toronto, Ontario, and I did not, my family doesn't speak French, so I think that's important to give that context. But I did grow up in a French school environment, which helped me a lot growing up. So I went to elementary school in French, I went to high school in French, and then I decided to pursue my studies in university in French as well. So I ended up with a minor in French. And it was just a really great experience, just being able to study all throughout and learning French. And in university, just taking different courses, whether it was like children's literature or translation. Fundamentally, I think it just helped me a lot in my life and eventually in my career.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else like to come in on this and talk about their background, their study backgrounds? Barbara.
Yes, thank you. Well, even if we are talking about study background, I just wanted to say that, well, my mother language is French. I'm actually from Belgium. So I did study, everything in French, and I came to Canada 15 years ago. But I have to say that it definitely gave me an asset because there was, and there still is, I think, a lack of bilingual employees. So I've always had a very good position in Canada where I use French and English. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. No, that's wonderful.
I can go if you
Thank
want
you.
to.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm from Quebec. I was born and raised in Quebec, so all my studies have been done in Quebec, so everything was done in French. When I moved here 17 years ago, I find a job at the Francophone School District, and French it is the language that is used, and we work in French. I would say 98% of the day. Everything is done in French, so that was a huge asset for me to be able to have this job that I kept for 17 years and that I really loved. And as I said, there's so many opportunities to have employment in French. It's really an asset to speak the language.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else from, Vincent?
Yeah, I'll continue. Well, for me, I'm from France originally, so all of my studies, my background is being made in France. I'm graduated from an HR master's degree, and then arrived in Canada almost 3 years ago now, in January 2021. And I started with Quebec, and then moved out to British Columbia. This was just my purpose of traveling, and then I had the opportunity to work at the SDCB, well, because of my bilingualism, and because also, well, even if BC is not really like bilingual, the country is, and there are opportunities definitely to work in French, even if my job requires me sometimes to talk in English, as now. But yes, there are definitely opportunities, and I think in the future, there will be more and more opportunities. So yeah, that's it for me.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great to know. And I'm sure our students are interested to hear that there'll be an increase too in the demand from your point of view. Any of my other panelists want to talk a little bit about any French studies or any just French background that they have? French speaking, I mean.
I'll come at it from a different view because I actually don't have a French background myself. And I think as I've progressed in my career and saw opportunities, I'm here for a champion to let you know about what not to do and to continue to learn, because as I work with the teams, especially our national teams, it is such a great skill to have. So I'm sort of at that learning stage now of going back and doing my own self-learning and continuing to evolve this, because we have that option, especially in Western Canada, to kind of opt out at a certain point. And I really wish they didn't do that in school and the curriculum, because you lose it. So although I could probably get by, it's something that I think as adults and as we progress and continue our education or employment, it's such an important skill to have. So I'm just here more to be an advocate to continue down this path, because knowing the opportunities that are available are going to open up a lot more doors if you have this as a skill versus not.
Thank you. That's wonderful. That's very, very useful information. And yes, and we all coming from it from different, with different skills levels and different backgrounds. And we don't necessarily have to have French to be here today. As you said, you're saying that, you're here to advocate for people having it, but it wasn't your actual case. Yeah, Stuart, is there anything that you want to add on this subject?
I barely got through grade 11 French to get into university, so I'm really not one to talk on that at all. Sorry.
No, but yeah, that's useful information for our students too, because even though you don't necessarily have the background yourself, you're here. You're saying that there is demand out there, and the value of these skills. So that's very important for everybody to hear as well. Okay, so I just wonder if I could ask a question about an estimate, and I really mean a ballpark estimate, about how many French speakers do you think there currently are in your organization? Again, I'll just let it go out there, and whoever wants to speak first, please do.
I can talk. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay. Thank you. I can talk, like, here in Douglas. I'm very new, so I don't know how many French speaker are, but at the Conseil scolaire francophone, the Francophone School District, there were at least 1,300 employees that we were employing all over BC, because the Francophone School District covers the whole province of BC. It's French schools as French as first language that is taught in those schools. So as I said, we were the they are the biggest employer. I'm not part of it anymore, but they are the biggest French employer out in the West. And there's so many opportunities. You have teachers, but you don't only have teachers. You have special ed educator. You have the technology department. You have so many, the HR, the payroll. There's so many different opportunities. It's not only teaching. There's different jobs opportunities with the Conseil Scolaire Francophone, and they are always looking for French speaker or people that can speak a good amount of French to be able to work for their organization.
Thank you. Vincent?
Yeah, sure. Well, for us, like the DCB, it's quite a small organization compared to the Conseil Scolaire Francophone. Definitely, we are like 20-ish people working there, with two offices, the main one in Vancouver, the other one in Kelowna. We are, all of us are able to speak French, but what is really like amazing is the background of those people, their let's say origins, because I'm from France, but we have, and I'm working with people from Vietnam, Korea, Sri Lanka, from Ivory Coast, and from Quebec, from Acadie. So Francophonie is not just France or Belgium. By the way, we don't have a Belgian people right now. We're gonna work on this. But yeah, Francophonie is everywhere in the world. So seriously, you can learn French almost everywhere. We have, of course, history related to a lot of countries around the world, and that makes Francophonie really unique and powerful. So,
Absolutely, yes. I'm teaching a culture course, a new course for Douglas College at the moment on the introduction to the Francophone world, and one of the main things is to talk about the fact that it is, all over the place geographically. Barbara,
exactly.
you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. And Vincent, you have a little bit of Belgium with you because we do work with STE, so we do organize some events with you.
That's amazing.
I haven't met you yet, but
okay.
So me for this question, what I did is I did take some number, and I found number from 2021. So out of a total of 225,000 positions. So this is all across Canada. 94,000 of those positions are bilingual in the government. And so, of course, we do have most of the position in the National Capital Region. Out of the 94,000, we have 66,000. I'm rounding it up. And then for Quebec, we have 15,000 if we don't count Ottawa and Gatineau. And then if we come back to British Columbia, so we have there was 545 positions in 2021. In my organization, so the Public Service Commission is a very small office. I work in Vancouver downtown. We are 7 people, and 6 of us speak French. So there's only 1 person who is not bilingual.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other rest of our panelists want to come in?
For the RCMP, obviously, we've got like 20,000 members. I don't know what the percentage would be, but I mean, the vast majority of members recruited out of Quebec, obviously, would be French, bilingual mostly, but certainly, that French is their primary language. If you're posted back to Quebec, you have to speak French, essentially. If you're posted to New Brunswick, you have to be at least bilingual to be posted there. And a lot of our jobs in Ottawa require bilingual. And we do the RCMP, and I don't know, Barbara, if it's the same for you, but we do testing for people's levels of, French and English. Like, it works both ways. And you get sort of a letter grade. And if you meet a certain grade, then, then you're considered like completely bilingual, or, you have good writing skills, maybe your language skills, your speaking skills aren't quite as good. So we have all sorts of different jobs that fit different categories of your bilingual levels. And then out here in British Columbia, we don't have like, there are bilingual positions. Like we have a civilian in our office, and then we're getting 2 members that are both going to be bilingual in the recruiting section. And those are positions that are identified. And then, and some detachments have bilingual designations depending on the number of members that meet that bilingual threshold in the province here. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, please, Jacqueline.
Oh, perfect. So it's a quite a unique organization because we've really adopted that sort of hybrid work environment. So of course we have lots of open positions in our Quebec area for personal lines, commercial lines. That's if you would live within that province. However, we have a number of national roles that this would be a great asset for. So although it might not require it to be bilingual, you might beat out a candidate because you're adding to that competency that maybe somebody doesn't have. So I kind of look at it as a superpower. And even a role on my team that we're looking to hire, we thought about, maybe we look at somebody bilingual. So it's starting to change the job descriptions in those profiles. So right now we have over 300 active roles available at HUB. Some of those are specific to a specific area, but a number of them can be hybrid. So that's what's really unique right now is you can come into HR or finance or legal or whatever your field of study might be, maybe it's business, and find a home to be able to bring that added language as an asset.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, that kind of echoes the theme, expand your careers, your career skills and add French. So wonderful. Thanks for tying that in for us. Okay. Monica, did you have anything you wanted to add on this topic?
It was actually, very similar to Jackie. I think, I was actually before, being a part of this event today, I went online to see how many openings do we have that require French, or it's like a strong preference. And I was seeing that we had over 100 openings just on our career site, but kind of aligned to what Jackie was saying that, although a lot of these roles are, you would need to be in Quebec. Some of them you do need to be in Toronto. I think that especially for myself supporting the Prairie region, I have seen a number of situations where they are looking for someone who it would be a nice to have if they spoke French. So I think that person would have an upper hand. So just to kind of echo that sentiment, I think anytime that you have that as it would be an extra. And I think if as talent acquisition professionals, if we're looking at 2 profiles that are the same, but ultimately someone knows an additional language, and that's like French, for instance, then you would have the upper hand. So I think that there's definitely a benefit there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So yeah, I do have some very specific questions, and so don't feel you have to answer them, any of you, at any point. But if anyone has any idea, so we've talked a little bit, we had some figures from Jacqueline about, I think 300 positions that are available at the moment with HUB, and then not strictly speaking for French speakers, as you explained to us. Does anyone from any of the other organizations have an idea approximately of how many openings you might have either on a monthly or a yearly basis for people with French skills, French speaking skills?
We start a troop of 32 people every Monday, and if people have French skills, we'd be happy to take them into the RCMP. So we have pretty much an endless amount.
Okay, wonderful. Barbara, I can see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I did also a search on our portal. So the gcjob.ca is where you will access all the job for the government, so all the organization. And there are 357 job opening for the public. So this is across Canada. And then I also did a search in British Columbia, 132. So there is a lot to choose from.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Anybody else have any figures they might want to throw in before we move to another question? Okay, well, feel free to write them in the chat if I've moved on and something comes to mind. Okay, is there anyone whose organization would qualify themselves as strictly bilingual or strictly French speaking, strictly English speaking? Just kind of just pushing the point here for our students.
I can tell for the Francophone School District, you need to be bilingual for sure, because you need to communicate with parents that do not speak French. And so that's for the teachers, but as well as the people that are working in the office. Like I'm an HR, so I was working as an HR manager there. As I said, mostly my day were in French, but when you need to communicate with pension planner, you need to communicate with whoever that is outside of the organization, you need to be able to express yourself in the language of the province, which is English. So I would say that we would require bilingual to work in the organization. That said, if somebody was mainly speaking French, we would not discard their application because of that. We would consider them as well, because the thing that we would not consider with the Francophone School District is if you would be only English, then because it's a Francophone organization, then you would not be considered, but bilingual would be what we would be looking for.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Okay.
Hub is definitely a bilingual organization. Everything that we do from a communication standpoint needs to be in French. So as we're building up plans, as we're building up processes, we always need to have French and English translation at the forefront for obviously, the different legalities, but it's just important that the individuals that are more strictly French do feel that they're getting the same opportunities with the communication. And so it's just changed, around how people are, rolling things out. And what's unique is because Hub is also in the US, where it is not bilingual French, sometimes when we do work with our cross-border counterparts, that's not something people necessarily think top of mind. So it is that friendly reminder, okay, that's a great idea. We'd love to roll this program out or this communication. That's why it's so important for us to make sure that we're thinking about French. So we are a bilingual organization. Some areas will speak strictly English or, of course, strictly French, but we always will have that bilingual flair pretty much across the board.
Thank you.
And obviously for us, we're, federal organization, National Police Force of Canada, we're officially bilingual as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Please go ahead, Vincent.
It's mostly like, maybe it's going to be a little bit redundant with what Melissa said before, but in basically the Francophonie, I'm not going to talk about my organization because we're quite small, but if you want to work in the Francophonie, right, we usually ask people to be bilingual, because even if most of my time here at the office, I'm speaking French with my coworkers, of course, but we do have relationships with different stakeholders within the province, outside the province, and sometimes even abroad. Could be with IRCC or different stakeholders or founders. So we have to speak in English. Which said, basically, and as I said before, we have people coming from different countries, different backgrounds, from, as I said, Vietnam, Korea, and lots of other countries. So maybe it happened for some of my coworkers, English was their main second language. Their first one, obviously, their mother tongue, and French their third language. Today, they're totally able to speak French with us. We do understand them. They might have accent or sometimes a little bit slow to speak, but still they can work with us perfectly, and they do an amazing job. So don't think that it can be like a limit for you. If you want to apply to work in the Francophonie, you're definitely welcome. Your background is amazing. Any kind of background, but for sure you have an amazing background. Do not hesitate to apply you in this little world, and we'll really enjoy your application for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a very important point, because often, Fanny, I'm sure will agree with me, but when we talk about events like what we're doing today, and we talk about using French in your careers, a lot of our students will say to us, "But my French is not good enough," and I'll be, and I'm like, "Well, you've started to learn French and you've got skills, and a lot of organizations will recognize that and will help you to improve, either by immersion, by the working environment being in French, or by actively encouraging you." I know there's some organizations and government bodies that actively encourage you and give you time off or pay for your studies or help to promote and for you to go up and improve those skills. So I'm always saying to my students, you've done the hard bit, you've started, you've got the basics, and now you can use them. You don't always have to immediately be fluent. But a lot of students that's a barrier for them. They just think, oh, I can't work with French. I'm never going to be good enough to be a translator or an interpreter. And we have to explain, just as Melissa was saying too, and Jacqueline too, that, there's lots of profiles out there, and your skill level we don't all have to use French in our careers because we're bilingual, but we can be on the way, on the path, and have a set of skills already. So it's important. Thank you for all of you for bringing that up.
And I just had, sorry, Melissa, I'm just gonna add something last. Also, like, we are talking a lot about bilingualism, right? But all of you students here and everyone else can hear my English. It's definitely not a perfect English at all. I literally not bilingual. No, I can't say that I'm bilingual. If I have a conversation with, I don't know, nuclear engineer, I won't be able to understand a word it would say to me, definitely. But for the worldwide world of definition of bilingualism, yeah. So do not, think because you don't understand every word of French or all of the vocabulary, you can be still defined as a bilingual person. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
I wanted to add to this because, even the Francophone School District for the Conseil Scolaire Francophone is mainly French, and you need to speak French. We hired people in very specific position that we could not find any French speaker to be able to do the work. And when we hired them, there was a condition that they would be willing to learn French, and they didn't speak a word of French at the beginning, and we paid the courses for that, and they started speaking. And because the environment was only French, like at work we were talking only French, their French improved like very fast, and they were able to learn a language because they apply on that job, and that job required to have French, but they didn't have it at first. So as I said, there's so much opportunity for people that are willing to learn the language and have opportunities that they would not if they didn't speak the language.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because this message resonates with me a lot, because I mentioned initially that my mother tongue is not French, and I struggled with this a lot. Doing my studies in French, I always felt like my French is not going to be good enough, and I don't think that I will be accepted as like a bilingual person because my accent is not quote unquote, like French enough compared to some of my peers. But that soon changed. I think once I had the confidence of getting my first bilingual role, which was actually in a contact center, not at TD, but it was my first job basically. And I started to talk to customers who were in Quebec, and they would be like, "Where are you located?" And I'm like, "I'm in Toronto." And they'd be like, "Wow, like votre français c'est parfait." And I would just get this boost of confidence, and slowly but surely I realized that I can learn it, and it can be just as good possibly when I'm servicing individuals who are francophone and who need to be communicated with in French and whatnot. So I think that's a really important message also, because yes, it definitely doesn't mean that, you have to become a translator or anything that you would need a lot of technical skills in French. There's so many different degrees of roles that you can occupy that you would need a different demand of the language for.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think I can see Jacqueline nodding away. Is there anything you want to add? I can see you were agreeing for sure.
I just, I agree with Monica 100% because I just think, even if it's basic conversation, it helps. And again, it doesn't have to be at that translation level. So just for the participants today, if you're feeling like, oh, it's not quite there, just continue to evolve it like any skill. The stronger you put into it, the better it will become. But don't feel like you have to be a certain point to be recognized for that. A lot of organizations are going to adapt your skills to the needs. So it could be in many different ways, could just be through a conversation. But I think it's that inclusivity that matters at the end of the day, and that recognition that it is important outside of Quebec. It is something that a lot of employers are, again, investing in. So the more that individuals can obtain that, again, it's just my shameless plug, the more of an asset you'll be. So just use it as your superpower, to be honest, whether it's very strong or you're still a beginner, it is a superpower no matter what your level is.
Wonderful. That's amazing to hear. I'm sure that there's a lot of students out there who are happy to hear that and will be encouraged to apply for jobs and to keep working at it and to start if they haven't already started. Okay, wonderful. Just a very specific question. So some of you may not have an answer for this, but when in your organizations, are there any particular certificates or diplomas that you're looking for? You might be aware of, for example, the DELF exam, which is a French exam that's recognized worldwide. And Fanny, you're going to have to help me remember what DELF stands for because I forget every time. Diplôme d'études en langue française, is that correct?
Diplôme élémentaire de langue française, and then followed by the DALF, Diplôme approfondi de langue française. Or maybe your institution use a Canadian language benchmark. We'll be interested to know what kind of diploma certification, if any, your institution is looking for.
Thank you. Yeah. Monica, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer this. So at TD, as far as I've seen so far, we don't have actually any requirements for a certification in particular that you would need to have. A lot of our roles that require bilingualism would be in the customer service capacity. So in the contact centers, different varieties of that, occupying different roles within the customer service space, whether it's at the branch or whatnot. So you don't actually need a certificate, but I think as long as you're interviewing and it can be seen that you're proficient in French. Although I do have to say, very likely, if there is a translation role, you would probably need to have a degree in translation, specifically probably at like a French university. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That if it's at the highest levels, shall we say, that there would be some expectation of a high qualification. Barbara.
Yes. So for the Government of Canada, Stewart mentioned it a little bit earlier. So you will need to pass a test of second language evaluation. So if your mother language is English, you pass the test in French and vice versa. And then, so for each position, there will be a level required. Well, we have French essential position, English essential position, and then bilingual position. And then, so you will, if it does require the knowledge of a language, then you will have a level that you will have to achieve. So there is A, B, and C. A is the minimum, B is intermediate, and C is a superior level. And we actually have a link, if it's interesting to you, where you can actually self-assess yourself. So we'll give you an idea of where you stand, and then you can prepare yourself, and then you will be tested in reading, writing, and oral proficiency.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Just if I could,
Please.
sort of to piggyback on Barbara, one of the things we may not look at, like the certificates specifically, but if you come to us with post-secondary or extra education or extra training, we take that into account through your application. It shows that, hey, I'm driven, I'm goal set, I'm looking to achieve something I set out to do, time management skills, all these different things that are important to us. Not necessarily what the degree or the diploma or what the program is specifically, but it shows overall your character and what you're bringing to the table as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that's very important to say. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to move on to something related to language skills, and that's intercultural competence. So very often, I'm sure you all know that, and the students know because because they're working with us. When we're teaching the language courses, specifically French, we are also developing cultural sensitivity and cultural competence in the given language or area, so the Francophone area, and regions across the world. And I just wonder what value you think that your various organizations and companies put on that aspect of skill in candidates and employees.
If I can go,
Please.
for us, that's important. We don't always have the RCMP's not always had the best reputation for sensitivity and however you want to put it. But I really do believe that we are trying to do much better. And the more well-rounded people we have apply and work in the RCMP, the more we reflect our communities and the more awareness we have of cultural differences and all of those issues that are ongoing and hiring a more diverse workforce is certainly a priority and for us it only strengthens our organization when people come to us with a diverse background. And I always tell people when they come to us with questions about applying, I never worked a day in security before I applied. I never took a criminology course. If people come to us with those things, that's great. But the broader a background you have that you come to us with, the more valuable you will be down the road to us. And I think that's really important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jacqueline, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's just important as the participants look for organizations that's part of your interview, that you're asking those questions as well, choosing organizations that do have that representation and asking about, what does your organization do to promote that representation? Do you have ERG groups or diversity pillars that, because the thing about the sensitivities is that we need to have the right individuals in that representation a part of our organization so that we continue to grow and progress. And so I can tell you from Hub's perspective, it's incredibly important. And that's why when it comes to our business planning or how we're communicating out, that we're always considering French language as part of that cultural sensitivity, so that you are including people. And so I just encourage everybody around when you start to interview and you're asking those questions, don't forget some of those questions. Always ask a question in an interview, but asking about what does the organization do around that intercultural inclusivity is a great way to understand, whether they have it or not, and how that will fit into your core values.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Does anybody else want to add anything to the value that we're talking about of intercultural sensitivity and competence that goes along very often with the development of language skills?
Yeah, I could continue.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. I think, it's basically just a huge opportunity to have a diversity in your organization, your company, anywhere. Because as I saw since I'm working at the SDCB, it's like I have a specific mindset. Some people could say it's a French mindset, definitely. But I'm working along with people from South Asia, for example, and well, they are more like in an analytic mindset, more calm, I should say. They're not like straight to the point, as French people are usually seen, and which is sometimes true. And so we have to work together, right? On the beginning, it could be quite disturbing, but you learn. You have to learn. Like you're working together on the same project, or the same organization, the same purpose. So you share this. So you have to work together and find a way to make it well. And so yeah, it's basically a chance that you can learn from these people, from how they were working before, how they work usually, and you can adapt, right? You don't have to adapt 100% of yourself. You don't have to change. You just have to change some little practices, some way of thinking, right? And because you're gonna do this, you're gonna follow this way of thinking. They're gonna do the same for you. They're gonna learn from you. And yeah, it's really amazing. And you can see that an organization that have such a diversity is going well, definitely. So it's definitely, it's a chance, and it's the best you can expect. Just working in a diverse organization. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we're getting kind of close to maybe opening it up for questions, and any comments of yours as well. But I did have a question about travel opportunities, which I think might it be interesting for students to hear. So it could be travel internationally, but it could also just be, across Canada, because we have that diversity here as well, in Canada itself. So I wondered if you might be able to speak to the opportunities for traveling in the professional context in your institutions and organizations. Barbara?
Yes. Well, so because the government of Canada is so big, as an organization, that you can definitely travel and find an opportunity across Canada, so in a different province. So that would be the first option. So if you are, willing to relocate, this is something you can do. My own experience is that I've traveled a lot. I'm from Belgium. I have worked in Ontario. Then I went to the United States, and I came back to BC. So I've learned a lot about, different cultures. So we were just talking about that. And then in my current job, so because we do career fair or event like today, well, the pandemic has made it a little bit more virtual, but it is coming back, and we are going back to in-person event. So we have, for example, as HR advisor, we do have the opportunity to travel and go and visit universities and colleges. And so for myself, it's within BC and then the northern region. So I've already traveled to Prince George, but we can also go to Yukon and other provinces. So this is definitely a great opportunity.
Thank you. Melissa?
With the Conseil scolaire francophone, there was, depending your role, but in HR, we had the opportunity to travel across Canada because we were doing job fairs, recruiting across Canada people that were speaking French. And also for the employees that were working in the schools, there were international travel done with students. So you could register and have your name chosen to accompany students. Even us as in the office, we could put our name down, and if we were chosen, we could accompany. The trip was paid for you. So they would go to France, they would go to Belgium, they would go to different places in Africa, doing volunteering work in orphanage and things like that. And any employee could apply for that, and they could travel. There was different opportunities, certainly, but it was all related to work that would be done in French. So that once again, French was what was required to do those trips.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
And I'll just go quick.
Please.
With the RCMP, obviously we have detachments all over the country, and I touched on that. We do international policing. We've got police all over the world. And in France and French-speaking countries where you need to be bilingual, or certainly have a high level of French. And we talked about the testing, and then we do UN missions as well. and to French-speaking countries. We have still involved in Haiti in a big way. We're involved in different African countries where French is the primary language, and you need to meet those French language requirements to go on those missions. So we have a lot of international stuff as well that involves the French language.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in? I think, Barbara, you have your hand up again. I'll just give the opportunity to Monica, to Vincent, and to Jacqueline before I come back to you, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'll just echo, we do have a lot of travel opportunities, mobility opportunities, relocation, virtual, with certain roles, like whether you're in HR, you might get to travel to fun places like Chicago or different places in Canada. We always have an HR summit. Usually that's in Vancouver, or, somewhere special. But that's where, looking at organizations that, again, have lots of national opportunities, you might be able to get to travel a bit more. But definitely based on what your position is, you may see there to be more travel than not, but we do offer some really exciting opportunities.
Thank you. Okay, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking about a specific opportunity that we had last year. So not just as an employee you will be able to travel, but you can also travel as a student. So we had an inventory for student last year for a tourist guide in France. So I just wanted to mention that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember the organization, but I think it was Park Canada, but don't quote me on that. But it does exist. So we do have, an opportunity for students as well. I wanted to mention that because we have talked about more like, like the real world of a job. But as a student, you can also travel.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great. Okay, so we are coming sort of towards the end or about to wrap things up, but I would like to open it up and see if there's any questions from I'm not seeing any in the Q&A, but that's not my job to monitor it. So maybe I've missed something.
No, I'm checking here the Q&A and the chat, and it doesn't seem that we have. Oh, we do have a question. So please, will you consider there are more jobs in the French-speaking side of the country than in the English-speaking side?
Great question.
It is. What our panelists are thinking. Is there more opportunities for French speakers in the east side of the country versus the west side of the country? What do you think?
Certainly in our outfit, yeah, like I outlined, Ottawa is huge, Quebec, obviously. But we do have detachments with designated bilingual positions throughout the country as well. But no, we're certainly Eastern orientated when it comes to the French language, and New Brunswick as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Barbara, I can see your hands up to answer this.
Yes, well, we did see earlier in the number that there are definitely more opportunities on the east side. But what I wanted to say is that in British Columbia or in English province, you do have an asset when you speak French, and it's what I've heard since I moved to Canada, so 15 years ago, is that it's not easy. And then you do have a lot of opportunities to grow. So then those positions also get, available. So they are always looking for bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
So in an English province, it can also be easier for you if you do speak French because you do have that asset to find a job.
Absolutely. Melissa, please.
When I moved out here 17 years ago, I didn't realize how much French community there were in the West because I had always lived in Quebec. But in every province, there is lots of French people, and there is communities that are, wanting to have more French speaker or people that are able to have a conversation in French to work for them. So it's not only BC, it's throughout Canada. There is French community, and when you discover them, you're like, oh, there's activities, there's sports, there's jobs, there's so much that is happening in French. But when we're not looking for it, it's not just showing to you. You need to dig a little bit more. But every provinces of Canada, they have opportunities, and there is French communities to be discovered for sure.
Thank you. Vincent, I think it'll have to be the last intervention if we're going to stick to time. Please
Sure,
go ahead.
Of course. I'm gonna be quick. So yeah, definitely agree with what has been said before, and just add that also because there are not only jobs in French in the Francophonie, there are also more and more jobs in French in the private sector. As currently, like if we look back a little bit earlier this year, or maybe even last year, on a political aspect, federal aspect, they basically implement the Bill C-13, if I'm right, which basically tend to improve Francophonie outside Quebec and in the private sector, which means, for example, and maybe some people, maybe Jack Lane could agree with me on this or not if I'm wrong, but if a company has to deal with Quebec or as services in Quebec, clients, or any kind of specific relation with Quebec or a Francophone side or business, they will have to get people speaking French to deal with those services, basically. So, and this is a political choice with the Trudeau politics, and maybe before I wasn't there, but there's this federal choice to implement, to increase the number of Francophone speakers overall in Canada and of course outside Quebec. So I guess there will be more and more opportunities for French speakers people in the West, outside Quebec, overall in a few years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So now the questions are coming in. So I want to be respectful of my guests' time as well. But let's see what we can squeeze in. Fanny, do you want to just tell us what the last two questions that have come in have been?
Sure, I will certainly do. So one of the participants is asking how to connect with your different organization, with your different institution you are looking for candidates speaking French. Should they contact you directly? Should they go to the website? What would be a good way to follow up with you after this conversation about professional in French? Mm-hmm.
I'm always happy if people connected on LinkedIn. It's just an easy way to get connected. So I'm happy to put my my LinkedIn in the chat. So if there's, because we are looking at early talent roles coming up, things like that. So please keep an eye on what we have open and connect. I'll put mine in the chat. But LinkedIn usually is the best way to keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Barbara, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just listed in the chat. So if other people want to talk to, so I'm giving the information through the chat, so I can let the opportunity for someone else to talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, for our students, so Barbara just put the link for students and for professionals. So you are all set up here with different opportunities, different directly.
Wonderful, thanks. Okay. All right, so 1 minute left. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And I've certainly really enjoyed this session. And I really want to warmly thank everyone who's here. So thank you to the students for coming. Thank you to Barbara and Keith for helping the French department set this up. And thank you very much indeed to all our panelists for giving up some time. I can really tell you that this is extremely valuable. The information that you've given us is extremely valuable. And we're very grateful that we could also record the session, because that means that students who had classes and who were unable to join us will be able to benefit from all the advice that you've been giving. And so that's perfect. Thank you so much. And perhaps Barb from the Career Center, perhaps you have something you want to say just to wrap it all up.
Well, this was a fabulous first event. I thank first and foremost our panelists. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. Boy, did I learn a lot. I've got a few things on my to-do list I'm going to go and do after this. So thank you. Thank you so much for all the advice, for sharing the stories. I know this type of information directly from market is of such value and benefit to all of us. Thanks to my team. which includes Kimberly and Fanny. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure putting this together, and I think this is going to be the first of many such events that we hold available for our students. And to those students of ours who joined, good on you. Thank you for being here today. And I really hope you found some great information and some really golden nuggets of info to take away with you. Let us know how we can help you. So please feel free to get in touch with your faculty teachers or with us in the Career Center after this so that we can help you move along your French career path in the best way possible. Kimberly and Fanny, I'll leave it to you to say the last few words.
Bah, merci beaucoup à tout le monde. Hein? Merci aux étudiants, merci aux personnes qui ont fait le panel avec nous, qui ont donné beaucoup d'informations. And for the students who are not yet studying French, you can see one question that I saw go past was, how am I going to start studying French? Well, contact Fanny and I, and we will be happy to let you know how you can take those first steps. And those of you who want to reach out to the organizations, the employers that are here with us, you've got the contact details. They've been very generous, so please do that as well. And we will definitely be looking into doing other such events in the future for you, because the value is definitely there. Thank you to everyone, and have a great evening. Bonne soirée à tous.